Divine Shadow, we have a level 3 security break. Hundreds have been killed.
General, you have disturbed my meditation. When it is completed, I will deal with you, and also with this minor matter.
Chug, 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 chug.
Hydrate, hydrate.
Welcome back, friends.
Welcome back.
Hi, I'm Rachel.
And I'm Matt.
And this is the Dead Do Not podcast.
A Lexx Rewatch.
Just a bumbling security guard in the great wide galaxy. Till one day he was dealt a different card in the form of a key. This key controlled the most powerful weapon ever made. Now he had it by sheer accident, or maybe it was fate. What a cast of characters all on the spacecraft traveling. A woman named Zev who escaped from her programming. A disembodied robot head that got brainwashed instead. And Kai, the always glum undead assassin. In this space adventure, you never know what comes next. So come join the crew for tales of sci-fi, laughter, and sex on the Dead Do Not podcast. Watching Lexx.
So when we last blah, 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 blah.
When we Lexx laughed Lou.
So we are watching season 1, episode 1, I Worship His Shadow. And this is part 2 of what would have otherwise probably been a 3-hour long episode, which we are totally comfortable with doing. But, you know, it's funny. I was like, sometimes I get sent podcasting advice from like podcasters on Instagram. And, you know, just general infographic, whatever. And one of them was like, the 3-hour episode is dead or something. And it was like, I mean, and I've seen it criticized a lot before too, the 3-hour episode. Nobody listens to the 3-hour episodes. And honestly, I think it's all about what they're about. Am I going to listen to 3 hours of some random person pontificating about like their life experience, but it's like woo-woo esoteric, like just a stream of consciousness? Probably not. Am I going to listen to a 3-hour long breakdown of a television show I like? Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would I do that for a movie? Yeah. Yes. Would I do that for a book? Probably. It just depends on your content, I think. Or like one of my favorite podcasts is This Is Actually Happening. And were there a 3-hour episode of This Is Actually Happening, I would totes listen to it. In fact, if it's sub 40 minutes, I kind of don't listen to it because then I'm going to have to stop and put another podcast on soon. And usually I'm listening to podcasts because I got time. We are joined by my mom's 17-year-old outdoor cat who has conned his way into our home.
By feigning death's door.
Yeah, he was minutes from death. He hadn't moved in days. He was laying outside, and I thought he shouldn't have to die outside alone, so I brought him in, and honestly, it was the biggest fucking con job I've ever seen. He's fluffy, he's hydrated, he's walking around, he's eating chips, he's enjoying as much wet food as he wants, he's on medication, and he has terrible allergies, so he might sneeze in the background. But Rudy's doing great, in case anybody's wondering. Rudy's like, yeah, I knew I was doing great. Gotcha, suckers. When last we left our intrepid adventurers, Zev and Stanley Tweedle, the arch traitor Stanley Tweedle, and Jiggerata were riding down the shaft, one might say, of Lexx, towards the command center. Kai had just killed Thoden and was reassembling himself and preparing to finish carrying out his mission.
They just penetrated the defenses.
They did. And now they are they're traveling along the shaft to get to the finish line, one might say, so that they can
climax of the episode.
So they can fire the weapon. So Zev, they get there and it's like this room. Jigurata and Zev fight. I think we talked about that in the last episode. But then Zev climbs into the pilot stand, but it doesn't recognize her handprint. And all credit to Zev, she immediately realizes that it's Stanley who has the key, and she puts him in the driver's stand so he can use the key.
And
to
she's
unlock
the only
Lexx.
one who saw the beam of light, other than
Do
Stanley.
the thing, yeah.
But Stanley may not have put it all together.
Listen, I'm rereading Twilight for Feast, Sheath, and Shatter, and I have lost all faith in characters actually knowing what's happening around them at any given moment. And so seeing Zev be like, oh, it's Stanley, and just swapping him out immediately was like, thank you. Thank you so much. And then Lexx goes, what planet would you like me to destroy, Divine Shadow? And they're like, this one, let's do this one.
Oh,
And-
sorry, I can't do that.
Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah. Lexx is like, I can't do that. This is a member of the League of the 20,000 Planets, which how was the Divine Shadow planning to destroy members of the League of 20,000 Planets if it will not destroy planets that are in the League of 20,000
I'm
Planets?
sure his Divine Shadow had a plan. Maybe something like, oh yeah, Lexx, I decree that this planet is no longer a member of the League of 20,000 Planets. It is now the League of 19,999 planets.
Yeah.
Please destroy that one.
Yeah. I wonder if it's exactly 20 or do they round?
Oh, it's probably an estimate.
Roughly. There's like 10 planets. That's like 20,000. It's fine. So they're like, okay, Lexx, okay, take us out to the frontier. Take us away from here. And the Lexx goes, sure. Yeah. No, I'll go. So it starts taking off. And then we get, this is when we get the super cool cut of when Kai picks up his own head and puts it back on. And it like scans around
Yes,
him.
extremely
Yeah.
well done.
It's so cool. And then he picks up his weapon. Caw-caw. And then we get music, and it's like a synth rock music ballad as the Lexx is like lifting up and pulling out. Is Lexx the pullout
It's
king?
epic.
It's really quite epic. The music has no business being in this episode.
And this is 3/4 of the CG budget.
Yeah, just this whole scene because it flies over. We watch it slowly leave. And then we cut to the Divine Shadow in his room of ever dwindling population because he's just asking people existential questions and then having them murder each other. And then he turns to walk out because the Lexx is taking off. So he's like, shit.
My plan has backfired.
Somehow my plan to allow them completely unhindered access to the Lexx has completely backfired in my face. Who could have predicted that this would have happened? Damn, maybe I should have killed them all when I could have. Because when Thodin and his bros were climbing up the scaffolding and those people had like a gun turret set up and they were shooting at them, they could have just shot them all. But the Divine Shadow was like, no, let's see how this plays out. Well, now we saw how it played out. They got in the Lexx and they took off with the Lexx.
Yeah, he underestimated his opponents.
Yeah.
Classic blunder.
Yeah. So this is curse these completely foreseen consequences that letting them into the Lexx has led to them stealing the Lexx. And then we get another long shot of the Lexx flying. And I want to take a moment and remind everybody that Jigurata was in Forever Night because I just spent like a whole day watching Dracula the series for Gare Can Get It. And I just made notes on each episode of what actor was in Forever Night. Like the French lady from Black Buddha was in it. Remember the Black Buddha, that lady?
Yeah.
She was in it. And also Rasputin from Strings.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so Jigurata was actually in Forever Night twice. She was in Trophy Girl and False Witness. And then the Divine, anyway, she must show up here because the only thing in my notes is like Jigurata was in Forever Night. Thank you, Past Rachel, for writing that down.
For all that context.
Thank you. That was so helpful. She probably pops up because she's standing there with them. It's like,
yeah, she's
Zed and
traveling
Stanley
parallel
and
with
Jigurata.
them.
Yeah. Well, she's like they're like clustered around Stanley. Like Stanley's in the middle, Zev's on one side, Jigurata's on the other side.
in the cockpit and I guess
Yeah,
the
in
bridge.
The cockpit is way better. Way better. Yeah, the divine shadow.
Balzac.
So the divine shadow goes into this room with a big ball of blackness floating in it. And he's like, Shadow, I gather you. So this must be the shadow's room of shadows. Shadows. Sorry.
Huge shadows.
Huge shadows. Yeah, it's fine. It doesn't matter. He takes the shadow ball over to this table.
So this establishes that his divinity is separate from his biology.
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't know why this ball of shadow is hanging out in this room. Is this,
What
it's like.
is the ball of shadow?
I don't know, because he takes it over to this table and then he's like, Predecessors, I have failed you, but I will not fail you again. I failed you by doing exactly what you told me not to do.
I didn't listen.
And I'm real sorry. And I'm probably going to do that again, but I have a real good feeling it's not going to fail next time. And he's like, I let them go to the Lexx. You let them go to the Lexx. He did not know they had a key. I mean, the odds of them having the super secret, super special, one of a kind key.
It's reasonable for him to assume nobody else has a key.
Right. So you can get into the Lexx, but then we'll just shoot you in there.
Technology is complicated.
Yeah.
And you can't have one person, like only one person, that knows how to do something. So, yeah, they exploited a vulnerability. This was a supply chain exploit in the Lexx security system.
Yes.
The people in charge of distribution of permissions defected, I guess. Or they were double agents the whole time.
Well, they went to that planet probably where like
Erico,
where it was designed. It kind of feels like they sought out the manufacturing plant and they got the schematic that was on file.
They got the software engineers.
Yeah, and they were like, "Can you remake the thing you made?" And they were like, "Yeah, sure."
Yeah, we already have a backup ready.
Yeah.
Just in case his divine shadow loses the one we gave him.
Yeah,
because we would
the light.
We don't want to get shot.
Yeah.
We don't want him to make us shoot ourselves in the head.
Well, what happens if you lose the one key and then you don't have a copy and then no one can drive the Lexx? That's not going to work out long term. We got to make sure
there's always a back door. There's always another master key.
Well, I'm sure Lexx will eventually find out about Lexx's backdoor exploitation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, he takes this ball of shadow, which is, I don't know, over to this table. And he like lays down on the table and he's like, this sacrifice I make for you. This sacrifice I make for order. And then he cuts off the top of his own head and has the brain removed so that the shadow can now fill the empty space where his brain used to be and use his body.
Sure.
So wait, now who's the shadow? Because they take his brain and they put it in the little brain box. But previously, he was both human and shadow because they didn't completely erase his memories. But now that they've taken his brain out and there was no like shadow kiss, we didn't have a memory transfer moment. Unless I'm completely blocking it out. So now.
Well, if there's no brain here, it means that whatever the shadow is doing in this body, there will be no record of it. Like, there won't be in 10 years when this body wears out.
Yeah.
They won't be able to take the brain out as a record of the wisdom of the divine shadow. They'll just have to lose that time.
So does he get more shadow powers, or is this a way to like, oh shit, that trying to lean into my humanity thing really didn't work out?
Well, he gets to dump the uncleansed brain
Yeah.
from the body. He needs a body,
Yeah.
or it needs a body
So
to
I
act
guess
in the world.
I guess he got to be a little bit human long enough to get the plot in motion, and now
Yeah.
he has to go back to being all shadow.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got shadow for brains. Welcome. That's what it says in my notes. It's the only line about it in my notes.
Okay.
It feels like I'm two people. I'm the person that takes the notes, and then I'm a totally different person when I sit here. And it feels like I'm having a conversation with a slightly unhinged individual.
That's
And I don't know.
understandable.
I don't know what that says, but there we are. They go back to Stanley in the Lexx, and Stanley's like, yeah, it's kind of cool. All of this was built from a capsule of amino acids in my tooth, which you said earlier, but I think he was looking for some more recognition for that, and everyone was like, the fuck? And then, caw, and they kind of got really distracted.
Yeah.
And
Understandable.
and Zeb was like, has anyone looked at my tits? And they were all like, yes, we all have. And then now he's like, oh, by the way, did anybody hear when I made that comment earlier? This was all built from some amino acids in my tooth. And this is when I think Jiggerata says, wait, are you really the arch heretic Stanley Tweedle? Like, I love that he's the arch heretic
Right.
Stanley
Like
Tweedle.
his reputation has grown probably because he has neglected it.
Yeah. Yeah. Or because he's just been like, well, I'm a designated data coordinator. I get to sleep in and get 991 demerits and nothing's going to happen to me. So it's going to be fine. Or I don't care what happens to me because I can't go anywhere else anymore because now I'm the arch heretic Stanley fucking Tweedle.
Right. And I can't do anything here because I'm working for the bad guy. I can't go back because I caved and gave secrets to the bad guy.
He got millions and millions of people killed because they go on to say that the amino codes that he gave to the Divine Shadow ended up being used to destroy 100 planets.
Yeah.
And he's like, I mean, you make one mistake. That's fine. So they end up getting to the border.
What is wrong with you people? I made one mistake and now this.
What fucking mistake?
Quote from our daughter.
Oh, yes. What is wrong with you people?
I make one mistake and now this.
You are
written
10.
written on post-it notes.
I know, it's shoved under the door. Oh, our daughter is 10 and she has the pent-up drama of a 35-year-old. Anyway, they get to
Which
the
will serve
border.
her well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it normally does because it broke the tension of the moment and we all started laughing because who writes that? What is wrong with you people? You're grounded. Don't send me a note that says, what is wrong with me? Anyway, so then the border officer asks them for exit codes. So they get the Lexx to the border and they're like, okay, what's the code? And Stanley goes, no one asks for codes anymore. He tries the same thing it worked for the lady at the beginning. Yeah. And the border guy is like, yeah, they do.
Everybody leaving needs a code.
Yeah. He's like, I don't know what's happening on that slipshod cluster over there, but like here we need codes. And Stanley goes, Lexx, will you destroy this frontier outpost? And the Lexx is like, sure.
I got you, fam.
Anything you want, Divine Shadow. As you command, Divine Shadow is actually what it says.
As you wish.
As you wish. And then they blow up the planet. Like
moon,
maybe. Border, outpost, like light travels down the shaft. And then the eyeballs light up. And this wave of energy flies off and it all blows up. Yay, and the peasants rejoice. They blow up the planet and they're all like, "Woohoo, yeah, we did that. Yay." How many people are on that planet?
Whenever we're like traveling through space and we get into this kind of situation, I always think, why don't we just go up?
Yeah, because space is infinite in all directions.
Right.
I mean,
if they're in like a galactic disc, just go up.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Honey. I have this thought every time I watch sci-fi, and I have to turn it off because there is one and one. Sometimes Star Trek they will fight like in tears, like they'll be
Babylon
like
5 is the only show.
that's
I've
where
seen
I was
that's done
going.
it well.
Babylon 5 is the only one that does it well, where they will actually like pivot and like fly straight up. They don't just like stay parallel to some galactically approved, this is the horizon
Down,
line.
yeah.
This is the gate is down. Like they don't stay that way. They actually will like pivot and they'll go upside down and stuff. But in pretty much every other one, they're like, no, this is the flat plane that we all exist in, and we cannot go
Right,
up
quick,
or
turn to
down.
the right and cut them off.
Yeah, and they'll be like evasive maneuvers, and they're just zigzagging, and like it's fine. You know what? If you don't get me started. So the peasants rejoice, and the peasants here being Stan and Zev and Jiggerata, and then Stan awkwardly kisses Zev. Like, I have been reading Twilight, and I'm rereading the sex scene at the beginning of Breaking Dawn, and I messaged Kate and Hannah and said I was breaking out in purity culture hives. And this is worse. But like I can't. I made like a licking motion, which you can't see because we're on a podcast, but it's gross. And then Zev is like, I mean, actually, it's something. It's not nothing.
So, what I was thinking during this scene, the ways I've acted, is this is the first time in Zev's life that she's ever had like the leverage of physical attraction.
Yeah.
And so for her it's like, oh, here's this, whatever, any guy at all to voluntarily kiss her. She's kind of like, ooh.
Yeah. Plus
That's new.
They lightning charged her cooch. So she's
Well,
like,
she's got vibes.
she's got needs right now. So she starts growling and she actually bites Stanley. And the robot head is also growling in jealousy. She's growling in cluster lizard. And then Jiggerata's just watching this whole thing. And finally she's like, Stanley, I've got new appetites. Okay. And then
Stanley gets scared.
yeah. And in the end, both women end up threatening to eat Stanley. Jiggerata very literally, and I assume Zev also literally, but maybe more pleasantly. I don't know how that's going to work out. But he ends up being saved by being the fact that he's the only one who has the key.
Right.
He's like, how are you going to drive? If you eat me, you eat the key. And they're like, God damn it. Got to keep him
Well,
around.
maybe that's how they get the key.
Right. But you know what? This moment of sexual tension is short-lived because the Shadow's personal vessel, the Mega Shadow, plus an attack force, but who gives a shit? There's a spaceship called the Mega Shadow.
The Mega Shadow.
And it's on its way. And so they try to have the Lexx destroy the Mega Shadow, but the Lexx is like, yeah, I can't do that. Divine Shadow. Like that's the same reason I can't blow up the cluster. I can't blow up the Mega Shadow. But it's okay. They get distracted yet again because Kai appears. Did you think Kai got left on the platform? Oh no. Kai's back. And then Stanley
He's unstoppable.
Stanley immediately caves. He's like, oh, anything you want. You want the key back? You want this? You want Zev? You want Jiggerata? You can have it all. Anything you want. And Zev says, Stanley, why don't you die with some dignity? I think that ship has sailed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is something to be said, species-wise, about self-preservation.
Yeah.
But yeah, Stanley caves easy.
You know what Stanley is? He's an NPC.
Yeah.
He's an NPC, a non-player character who ended up being like the crux of the whole plot of the universe. But it doesn't make him not an NPC.
But luckily, he has a plot device.
Well, we find out
that out in a minute.
Yeah, and we do find out that he was an assistant deputy courier. So all he was doing was transporting the information. And he got captured and he got tortured. And he was like, what was I supposed to do? Which is actually a little bleak and a little sad and a little dark because he was just like a dude. He was like an Amazon delivery guy that got picked up and happened to be carrying a package containing the amino acid codes that would allow the Shadow to build the most powerful weapon in the universe and destroy over 100 planets. But at the end of the day, he's literally just an Amazon delivery driver. And now now he's the arch trader, Stanley Tweedle. And all he was doing was going to his $15 an hour job.
Right. But he didn't
Yeah.
have just one tooth.
Well, I know,
Anyway.
but my point here is it's not like anybody prepped him for being tortured.
Right. He wasn't like a leader in the resistance.
Yeah, he wasn't Thodin space pirate with my invisibility potion eye and a bug bomb up my nose. He was just fucking Stanley Tweedle. He was driving his delivery truck. He got captured and he ended up like through sheer bad luck carrying a very important thing.
Right.
And he has been paying for it ever since. And so they're like, okay, Kai, like, what are you going to do? Because he's just standing there. Well, Stanley has a bit of a meltdown. And Kai's like, well, I think I'm going to kill both of you. I mean, I'm here. That's
just doing my job.
Even that was way more chipper than Kai really is, actually. But wouldn't you know it? The cluster lizards are eating the predecessor's brains. And they're like, help us. Because they're just like brains and
right,
boxes.
because the cluster lizards are still hanging around.
Yeah, because they're still cluster lizards. Did you forget about them? You shouldn't. They didn't forget about you. They're waiting
And
to
they
eat
love
you.
them brains.
I know. They're like, oh, look, brain snacks. All we have to do is get them out of the containers. And so Kai is like, oh, shit. So he dips off to go try to help them. He ends up jumping off the platform. It's okay. He's
indestructible.
He's decarbonized. And then on the Mega Shadow.
It's the proto blood.
Is it? I think it's the decarbonization. It
Well,
makes him bouncy.
He has proto blood
Yes.
that keeps his body
I know.
running. Okay.
I'm
All
there.
right.
There's no sense here, so we might as well just lean into the nonsense.
He has a nanoswarm that rebuilds his body. And
Let's go with
sustains
that.
it.
Yes.
To me, that's what proto blood means.
Okay. Yeah. Whatever they are, they don't contain carbon, so we're both right. It's fine. So then on the Mega Shadow, we have the Shadow, who is also kind of a Mega Shadow now because he's not like a human brain with shadow tendencies. He is like an actual shadow swarm in a human body. He's like the Egger suit.
Yes.
Yeah, but he's the shadow suit. Anyway, the priority now is to end this prophecy. The predecessors will understand. It's fine. I know they're all on the Lexx, and it's going to be really sad to lose them all. But if I end up saving the Shadow as a whole, they'll get it. They'll understand. The last of the Brunnen G must be destroyed. Well, who kept it? I mean, well, if it isn't the consequences of my own decisions, because they were all dead and you kept one as a pet. But Kai appears down in the brain room. He like shows up. I don't know how he knows where the brain room is. I don't know where the brain room is in relation to the cockpit. It doesn't matter. Nobody cares. It's not important. And then he ends up killing the cluster lizards that is eating the brain snacks. And the brains are like, who are you? Because Kai just shows up in the room. And Kai's like, I was sent to protect you and kill the people who stole the Lexx. And the brains are like, hell yeah. Go do that then. Go on.
But who are you?
Do that. And Kai's like, cool. So he picks up a piece of brain.
Well, I think he hears some whispers from that particular brain that recognizes Kai, because that's the brain that kept him alive. And so apparently by squishing it, he squeezes out the memory vapors.
Memory juice.
Memory juice.
It wouldn't matter because at this point, all the brains have those memories. Because remember,
I don't think they do.
Yeah, no, that brain shared the memories, remember?
Oh, it shared it?
Yeah,
Okay.
when they were in you called it when you put Tupperware, smaller Tupperware in a larger Tupperware container.
Yeah.
All the little brain dudes were riding around in that ship and they were like, well, at least there's no Brunnen G. So, I mean, how right can the prophecy be? And there was that one brain that was like, oh, guys, actually.
Have I got a story for you?
So wild coincidence. I maybe kept a Brune and G for funsies. And they're like, the fuck? I thought we agreed we were going to kill him all. And he's like, well, he kind of is
It
dead.
was just for the laughs.
I mean, he was like, I don't know. I don't know. It just happened, okay?
It felt like poetic
It
justice.
felt like a good idea at the time. And looking back, all right, maybe it wasn't great, but you make one mistake and what is wrong with you people?
I should have pinned that thread on the Shadow forum so that every new Shadow
Yeah.
got educated. Oh, there is one Brune and G left.
Yeah. So it shared Kai's memories because we watched Kai's memories.
Okay.
Yeah. So he could have picked up any brain. I mean, that's my interpretation. He doesn't have to pick up a specific brain because that one might have already been eaten. So Kai ends up, no, because he actually talks to that guy. So it's not. So Kai picks up this piece of brain and he hears the song from the beginning. And he's like, I know that song. And the brain who killed him is like, yeah.
Damn, that was a good singer.
He's like, wow, I used to be in a band. That explains the hair.
It does.
It does.
Yep. And
Yep.
the outfit.
And the outfit.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So wait. The brain
So what's the name of the band?
the outfit, the Bee Gees.
Okay, so in one of the later Dune books, somebody, I think it's the admiral guy, like the supreme military leader, blah blah blah. He refers to the Bene Gesserit as the Bee Gees. And it just totally took me out of the moment. Okay, so we got some crossover with the Bee Gees.
Wait. Here's my main question. When we first see him and he's flying around in the bug ship, he's wearing a really colorful quilted space outfit of some description.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's a
he
radiation
is
shielding.
actually still wearing the same outfit, only now it is black. Is it actually the same outfit? Hang on. And when they made it decarbonized, did it turn black?
Okay, here's my bullshit physics on decarbonization.
Bullshit physics hour with Matt.
It doesn't actually remove the carbon because
Okay.
that's a little bit too far.
Yeah, right.
It's either a leftover, it's like a residual linguistic or naming convention that just stuck with the process, where at first they thought, oh, yeah, it removes the carbon. That's how it works. And then some other scientists came along and said,
No.
dudes, it doesn't remove the carbon. Okay, but
Vaccines
we can
don't cause autism.
we can still keep calling it decarbonized,
Yeah.
but we all acknowledge that the carbon is still there. What's happened is there's a quantum state change so that the free carbon bonds are neutralized. So there's no more free carbon bonds. That's what decarbonized means.
Okay. You know what? It's fine. Maybe all of his carbon is still with him, but it actually now exists in the dark zone.
Is the carbon in the room with us right now?
In a manner of speaking, but also in a manner of speaking, no. Does my carbon travel in a straight line or in a circle? Okay. All right.
If you turn the carbon atom inside out, is it still carbon?
Will it become a black hole? All right. So the brain who killed him talks to him and he's like, yeah, you don't remember who you are and you can't remember it because I kind of took your memories and then I kept you alive for 2008 years and I made you into a killer. Isn't that really funny? And he's like, oh, okay, so that's when he picks it up and he squeezes out the memory juice.
Memory vapor. It
Memory
floats in the
vapor.
air.
Memory vapor. Yeah, the magic memory smoke. And
Ooh,
then he remembers.
let the magic smoke out.
He did. And he remembers, I am Kai, the last of the Brune and G. Oh my God. And then Kai, give this actor all of the props because he has to hold what amounts to a bit of jello and act with it. Like,
And he does.
and act. And he crushes this. I mean, everything else is funny.
Performatively and literally.
Yes. Yes. I mean, everything else is, just slightly left of center. We just flew on a like transport thing that was also a bug and had like a ball sack for a gear shift. The cockpit of the Lexx is clearly just those wireframe loop things that they stretch nylon over. And everyone is doing a great job, but then this guy has to show up and be the fucking straight man. Like the straight man of all straight men. And then they hand
the
him
straightest Canadianist straight man.
Then they hand him a bit of moist jello covered in red goo and they're like, this man killed your entire civilization.
And
Now-
enslaved you.
and forced you to kill men and women and children.
Now, a woman is going to walk in this room. You need to convince her
Yeah,
that this brain did all this to you.
right.
Go.
Yeah. And the brain is like, what are you going to do, Kai? You're just animated flesh. You have no willpower of your own. And Kai's like, wrong. You gave it back to me, bitch. And then he squishes
I was
the
going to
brain.
throw bitch on the end there if you didn't. it's required.
Yeah. And then how many brains do you have to squish? Hopefully he got this in a couple of takes because this feels like I couldn't do it. The like squish. Yeah. Anyway. So then the mega
I can just
shadow-
imagine if Rachel had to squish the brains, she'd be leaned over the toilet like, like the other
Great.
night.
Shh. I needed that 45-ounce margarita and I regret nothing. All right. So meanwhile, while Kai is having this existential crisis, the mega shadow has penetrated the Lexx
Latched on.
and docked with it. And
The docking port of the Lexx has inserted into the
yes,
mega shadow.
thank you. Thank you for finishing my metaphor for me.
You're welcome.
And so then Zev back in the cockpit is like, oh my God, Stanley, where should we go? Like Kai clearly left. He's no longer a threat. That whole shit is done. We don't have to worry about that.
Is his divine shadow a sexually transmitted disease?
I mean, it is in this moment because the divine shadow goes from the mega shadow to the Lexx. So in that sense, yeah, I get.
With just the tip.
Oh, this is going to be a fun podcast. All right. Zev is like, where should we go? I mean, we're out in the border, but like there's every planet within however long is in the League of 20,000 planets because literally there's 20,000 of them. Where are we going to go where the divine shadows reach is long? And Stanley's like, oh my fucking God.
His reach is so big.
It reaches around, one might say. Shh, I'm trying to keep the mic. I'm trying to stay on target.
What? Hold on. You told me, hey, let's do a podcast where we watch Lexx. And now you want to stay on target?
Listen.
What's going on here? I'm getting mixed signals.
Like the immortal Jeff Foxworthy says.
Oh, wow. I don't think I've ever heard you quote Jeff Foxworthy. Go.
It's not the size
Go.
of the boat. It's the motion of the ocean. But you can't get to England on a rowboat. And with that, we return to Stanley Tweedle, who has just remembered that he has a tooth that contains the coordinates of planets that are inaccessible to his divine shadow. And he's like, but it's in my tooth. And Zev's like, no problem. So she punches him in the face and he spits out his tooth. So luckily she knocks out the exact right tooth. And then she crushes it with 790, which 790 is like harder.
Thank you.
Harder. And then she pulls out this tiny little piece of paper and she holds it up in front of 790.
Microfiche.
And 790 can read it, so that's good. So they pull out a small strip containing coordinates. The robot head reads it.
And translates it for the computer. For Lexx.
And the robot head reads out the coordinates to the Lexx to tell them where to go, just as Kai reappears. And he just walks onto the scene. And he goes, I've killed mothers with their babies, philosophers, warriors, the evil, the good, the weak, and the beautiful. And I've done this in the service of his divine shadow, and I've never once shown mercy. And then the divine shadow appears. And he goes, I sense a loss of power from my predecessors. Like, we go back to the divine shadow, and he's like, I sense a loss of power from my predecessors. And Kai's like, oh yeah, a bunch of them died. But they are all good now. Everything's good now. It's okay. How are you? And
We're all fine here.
The divine shadow's like, oh, okay, cool. Thanks for helping me with that. Okay, so kill these people so we can, get back to business. And Kai goes, no.
Thanks, but no thanks.
No. And the divine shadow goes, okay, kill yourself. And he goes, I'm already dead.
Gonna have to pass on that.
Yeah. He goes, well, then you cannot fulfill the prophecy. And the divine, the divine shadow says, then you cannot fulfill the prophecy. And Kai goes, I think you should have listened to your divine predecessors, or not so divine, bitch. And then he yeets himself off the edge, like, and like flees. And then the divine shadow's like, nuh-uh, not on my watch. So he glides off after him, like he jumps off and spreads his arms, and then like a glider appears, like it's
like Batman in
like
the Dark
Batman,
Knight.
yeah.
But why? I'm a little confused about why the divine shadow went after Kai instead of securing the cockpit.
Because Kai was going after the remaining predecessors.
Oh, I figured Kai had already squished them all.
Oh,
okay.
He came back to pontificate, I assume.
He's got time.
I think he needed to talk it out with somebody, okay?
He's functionally immortal.
So I think he was coming back to be like, y'all, I've done some fucked up shit. And I got a choice right now. I can stay with his divine shadow and keep doing the same fucked up shit because honestly, I'm dead. What difference does it make? Or I can start making my own choices. And I just need someone to do some pro and con with me. And just kind of, should I kill you? Should I not kill you? Like, I just need some guidance. I think that's what he was coming back for, was to be like, I am deeply confused. Like, he's having an existential crisis.
I need to touch grass.
And there's none. So I need to talk to you guys about this. Touch ass, maybe? Zev, you available? So anyway, he can't. He's dead. So I think that's what
the
he
dead
was.
do not touch grass.
So that's what he was coming back to do, in my opinion. And then the divine shadow shows up and he's like, oh, opportunity knocks. If I don't destroy the rest of the brains right now, this is my shot. And I got to get back there before he gets there. So that's why he jumps off. And the divine shadow's like, oh shit, the divine predecessors hold at least a piece of the divine shadow. And I need to make sure that that remains preserved. And so I got to go keep Kai from destroying them.
I wonder if the divine shadow is just a set of personality traits without memory. And the purpose of the predecessors is, and the organic brain of the host, is to kind of keep that record going. So that when the shadow moves to the next body, it has some context.
It allows you to have a contiguous ruler who has different viewpoints that they can consult with. So it's like you can have a single ruler, the divine shadow. The divine shadow is always the ruler. There is no end to their reign. But to keep the place from becoming stagnant, theoretically, you need an influx of new ideas, and you need people that you talk to that you trust who can provide different viewpoints. Well, who do you trust better than other versions of yourself So that's what the divine predecessors are just like a repository of like memory and information that you can reference in order to like make decisions. That's why he can go up there and chat with them. And theoretically, they all agree with each other because they're all the same person. So when they were like, don't leave the cluster, you're being a little bitch. Just keep things the way they are. It's working out great for us. And he was like, no, I think I'm going to destroy the entire universe.
Right. And it's basically the same psychological temperament with just different sets of memories.
Right. Yeah.
That are like more significant.
Right. So it's yourself with different experiences, like twins. It's like having two people that start in the exact same spot, but then lead different lives. And then you just start that same spot over and over again. I know
I know all about that.
I know you do. You're looking at me like I don't have the same personality as my twin. Mm-hmm. So then, oh no, the Lexx is headed towards a fractal core. You don't need to know what that is. No one cares. It's fine. It's the opposite of a black hole, I imagine, because we are in the opposite universe as our universe. So they have a hole that emits a bunch of light. We have holes that absorb a bunch of light.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And according to special relativity, you can have a black hole and a white hole as a pair of space-time anomalies.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's got to go somewhere. We don't know where it's going right now, so sure. And the best part about this is we know it's a fractal core because Zev sees it and she's like, what the shit? And 790
I'm
goes...
just imagining that the coordinates, the navigation coordinates for flying through this fractal core were provided for free by Freddie Prinze Jr. from Wing Commander.
Wow. That was a deep cut. Wow. Wow. I think I just retired that episode. Or I'm about to retire that episode, A Strange and Beautiful Book Club.
To Patreon only.
Yeah. Wow. If you haven't seen that
Freddie Prinze Jr. and Matthew Lillard.
Shiny bit of space trash. It is the worst 90s sci-fi, best 90s sci-fi movie you could ever...
I think the universe building has a lot going for it.
Right, because it's like six video games. And they were like, fuck the video games.
They're like, hold on. I'm going to take all this video game world building. I'm going to feed it to my dog. My dog's going to shit it out. And then I'm going to put that on some film.
And I'm going to make Freddie Prinze Jr. star in it. Great. Got it? Good. Thank you. And Matthew Lillard, because they're bros. And I mean, still the peak moment of any sci-fi movie ever is when that lady crashes on the runway and they're like, hello? 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 And she doesn't respond and they're like, she's dead. And then they just push her ship off and it falls.
It falls!
It falls in space. They are not near a planet. There is no reason for this thing to fall away. But it falls.
I have some ideas about artificial gravity sources.
We don't need to talk about it on this podcast.
Which would be consistent with the way that this ship falls off the edge of the runway. But they didn't explain it.
Can you explain why they bob up and down when they're talking to each other in their little fighter planes?
Yeah, unstable propulsion.
Okay, it's fine. So what I was saying before you rudely interrupted me is the best part about this is we know it's a fractal core because Zev is like, what is that? And 790 goes, that perfection in the female form is a fractal core. And so along with Nymph of the Torrent, which I have recently dubbed myself, I would also like to be referred to as perfection in the female form. I'm going to start making a list. It's kind of like Divine Shadow. You can refer to me by any of my titles.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah,
because I just ordered the Nymph of the Torrent thing. I'd hate for that to become obsolete.
That's from our Planet of the Apes episode of Strange and Beautiful Book Club. So we go back to the Divine Shadow because the Divine Shadow is trying to kill Kai, and he's like shadow blasting him. He's like holding his arms up and like, like chai, like chi shooting. He's like,
Chai, the counterpart of Kai. Another society that was wiped out. That's this
the Brunin
one
D.
particular. Oh, no, the Brunin J.
no, because then they'd be the BJs, and that's just that's a rabbit hole. What I combined there was chi and Kai, because I was trying to say he's like shooting his chi at him. Kai.
Hold on. I have some.
But don't worry, dear listener. He doesn't die. He can't die that way.
He's
because
already dead.
He's decarbonized.
Meg sent me a reel.
Oh, good.
And it started out this lady running out of Staples. And she says, guys, Staples has staples.
That's what the L in the staple logo is. And go.
Okay, so this reel starts with this lady running out of Staples saying, guys, Staples has staples. And then it cuts to her running towards a Dick's Sporting Goods. And then it cuts to a guy running towards a BJ's warehouse.
Yeah.
And then it's two people coming out of a Come and Go. And then it's a guy walking out of an In-N-Out.
And Five Guys.
Oh, yeah. And somebody
Yeah.
walking toward a Five Guys.
Thank you for that.
Enthusiastically.
Yes.
The innuendos will
Abound.
will
Innuendos abound. Yes.
in Lexx. So
So the Divine Shadow tries chi blasting Kai, but it doesn't work because he's already dead and he's decarbonized. And then for some reason, Zev and Stanley Tweedle have shown up. I think they're trying to get Kai and the Divine Shadow because they're headed towards this fractal core and they're like, shit's falling apart and we need another.
Kai seemed like he was on our side for a moment.
Well, I mean, Kai did kill Jiggerado. He didn't cover it, but he like grabbed Jiggerado with his caw and then
Did he?
Yeah, and he tossed her over the side.
I vaguely recall Jiggerada being a recurring character.
She might come. We don't see her die, but he's like, "Oh, are you the Wicked? Jiggerado the Wicked? Nah, yeah, you're out of here." Like, I like the other two, but you got to go. So he tosses her over the side earlier. But now Zev and Stanley Tweedle start squishing brains to reduce the power of the shadow. So that please don't. So the Divine Shadow takes the time to yell at Zev, and Kai cuts off the top of his head. Like he did. Oh no, that's not how he killed Thodin. Maybe he took a page out of Thodin's book. He cuts the top of the Divine Shadow's head off, and then he gets attacked by the shadow smoke that's inside his brain cavity. Just as the Lexx goes into the fractal core and comes out the other side. And then wouldn't you know it, y'all, Kai is okay. And
He's
Stanley,
like a good guy now.
yeah, and Stanley goes back to enthusiastically squishing brains, and Kai's like, actually, it's fine. You can stop now. They're all dead. And then they just leave this room, and I wonder if they just shut this door and then just mutually agree to never go back in this room. Can you imagine cleaning this room up?
Yeah, just shut the door, never open it again.
Yeah. And then Kai and Zev, like Zev looks at Kai and Kai looks at Zev, and mostly it's Zev because Kai's dead, but Zev is like, oh, you know what's working for
she's
me?
in 6 episodes.
Jiggerada?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and she's from Toronto.
Of course, Toronto.
Toronto.
And then Zev is like, he's way hotter than Stanley. Yeah. And he's got height and girth. Anyway, yeah. He's 6'7", even if half of it is hair. And then they fly back up to the bridge on the Dickmobile. I don't know what else to call this. It's a bug with a ball sack. So I don't know what to tell you. And they end up going up there just in time to start getting shot at by the Mega Shadow. But the Lexx is like, no. And so it fires back and destroys the Mega Shadow. And they're like,
self-defense overrides.
No, that's not what it is. Because they're like, Lex, did you not know that was one of the shadow ships? And the Lex is like, oh, yeah, I lost a lot of memories going through the fractal core.
Oh, right. After the fractal core, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Zev's like, okay, well, then let's go back to the cluster and kill everyone. And 790 is like, I can't. And they go, what kind of robot are you? I mean, he could be like a janitor robot, in which case it would not be reasonable to expect him to be able to fly
Right.
this
He's
ship.
like an orderly.
He's a nurse. I know what you want from him. Yeah, and he's like he's really attracted to Zev, and that is his primary personality trait. It's not like he ever claimed to be able to fly the ship.
it's like in Kung Fu Panda when they're like, okay, do this move. I don't know what you're talking about. Or, I pulled my hamstring.
Yeah.
But then it's, hey, do some fucking parkour and get to the cookies in that cabinet. Whoosh, 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 whoosh.
Yeah.
Right? If it's, hey, Zev needs you to do this,
He can figure it out.
he'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But if it's, hey, the same thing you just did for Zev, can you do it for all of us now, but in reverse? I don't know what you're talking about.
Right. Well, they go, what kind of robot are you? And he goes, the kind that wants to live in your pants. This is also, I only have knowledge of our universe, and this is the dark zone.
The dark zone.
Dark zone. What do we do? And then Kai's like, find a home for ourselves here, I guess. And they're like, he says, we find a home for yourselves, not including himself, I guess. It's not all bad, and I'm dead anyway, so I don't have a future no matter what universe we're in. And they're like, oh, Kai, you need therapy. He's like, that may be, but I don't have an infinite supply of proto blood. So I'm going to go into stasis so that I can, stay around.
I have the strength for one question. And then I need a nap.
Yeah. And then he's going to sleep. Yeah, he's getting ready for his nappies. And he goes, in the light universe, I have been darkness. Perhaps in the dark zone, I will be light. I love that they included this character. That they have,
Kai?
yes, because they have Stanley Tweedle, who is objectively ridiculous. He's our NPC character. He's like our accountant. He's our unlikely hero. And then we have Zev, who is also our unlikely heroine, who is like a woman who is completely unaware of her own worth because she's been beaten down for so long. And we're going to get to see her learn and grow and become empowered. And then we have a horny robot head and a man who is the physical, is the physical embodiment of an existential crisis.
Yeah. I was going to say, the horny robot head stays a horny robot head the entire time.
It does not grow. We don't expect
There
it
is
to
no
grow.
character growth. He's already completely distilled to his ideals.
He's embraced his shadow. He's done all of his work. He's a horny robot head. But if we had not had the Kai character, I don't think that this show would have the charm that it has.
Oh, Kai makes it.
Kai makes it because no matter how silly you go, you have Kai.
Kai is the one that they have to go to solve problems.
Yeah.
But every time they say, hey, Kai, wake up. We need you to solve another problem. It's like, okay, I will solve your problem, but therapy session.
Yeah.
And so that's the trade. That's the exchange of value for value.
Yeah.
For Kai is, okay, I'll help you out, but you got to scratch my back.
Yeah.
And I'm working through some shit.
I got
2008 years worth of shit.
Yeah.
Dead shit. The dead do not shit.
He's like, He literally came from a race of people that were like dreamers and artists, and he has been nothing but death for 2,000
All of the
years.
meaning that drove that creative outlet has been removed from his life.
Yeah. And Zev is like, this is actually the hottest shit I have ever seen.
So hot.
Oh my God, he's so broken. She's like, can I sleep with you in your nappy spot? Like, can I be frozen too? Like, this is the like morally gray hero, the tragic morally gray hero. And Zev is here for it. And then they go back to the Lexx and they're like, okay, Lexx, let's find ourselves a new home. And the Lexx goes, as you command, Captain. And then they fly off into space.
You wish.
Thank you. Then they fly off
Okay.
into space, which is technically the end. But then we go back, and on the cluster, there is one brain. Remember, he removed his brain and left it behind.
Yep.
So no matter what happened, there would be one seed of shadow remaining. And it's the like broken one. It's the like
The contaminated
the
one.
contaminated one. And he's like, I will revenge the loss of my predecessors. And that's the end of the episode.
Woo!
And that was a lot of establishing. They had a lot of heavy lifting to do. They had to get every single character set up. They had to get them together. They had to get them on the Lexx. They had to send them off, and they had to establish the main central conflict, which is fleeing from the shadow. And they had
Right.
an hour and a half to do it. There is one show and one show only that I know that managed to get away with the setup episode having like 5 minutes of setup, and it's the central conflict for the entire series.
What show is that?
Farscape.
Yes.
Yes. When he shows up and his pod appears in the middle of the battle, immediately a fighter ricochets off of his little pod and ends up crashing and dying. And that's it. That's the brother of the guy who like commands the fleet. And he's like, oh, that guy has some kind of super death weapon. And I've got to get him and bring him back and figure out who he is. And he chases him across the galaxy.
4 seasons.
Well, for like, and then eventually another guy takes over and he's after him because for other reasons. But it's just like this one immediate moment of setup, which feels extremely trivial, but it ends up being the central conflict for like a long time.
Yeah. Or at least the central motivation for the bad guy.
Yeah. And that is the most succinct one I've ever seen. This one was not the longest. I feel like there's definitely seasons of shows where you're like the whole first season feels like setup. I wonder why we didn't split this into 2 parts. It must have aired as like a TV movie.
I saw this described as the first season was actually 4 made for TV movies as a series.
Okay. I can see that.
And then it was split up into episodes that are all long. So season 1 is all these really long episodes, but
Yeah.
then season 2 is much shorter episodes.
That's really interesting that it managed to survive to season 2 being effectively a miniseries. Huh. Well, that will be interesting to watch now that we can do it because we finished season 1, episode 1.
Woohoo!
Heck yeah, man.
Hell yeah.
I'm excited to be back here in vintage TV space. Classic TV, not vintage. It's technically, no. Is it 25 years is vintage? 50 years is antique? Classic. We'll call it classic. Classic TV space is where I feel most comfortable. I actually don't watch a ton of new TV, which drives Kate up the wall.
Vintage. The year or place in which wine, especially wine of high quality, was produced.
Thank you. Is it Lexx if it's not made? Wait, I'm trying to think of the champagne joke, but for Lexx. Like, is it Canadian sci-fi if it's not? I guess it wouldn't be if it's not made in Canada. That's a bad joke. I'm trying to think of that it's not champagne if it's not made in the Champagne region of France.
Right,
Otherwise,
it's just sparkling wine.
Well, we'll figure it out. I'll figure it out eventually.
An item described as vintage should speak of the era in which it was produced.
Well, then this is definitely vintage.
So the more accurate way to use the word vintage, so technically vintage in the English language almost exclusively refers to wine. But for the sake of what we're trying to refer to,
Yeah.
the more contextual way to use the word vintage is to say vintage 1990s or vintage 1980s or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's representative of the era in which it was produced. Oh, wait. Okay. Vintage should not be used in reference to objects less than 20 years old.
Okay. Thank you. I knew there was a timeline on that. So it can't be vintage 2020. This is so vintage 2020. It's not far enough ago.
This is vintage.
I said
Yeah.
it can't be vintage 2020.
Right.
Like
right.
this could be so 1990s vintage.
You'd have to wait until the 2040s to start talking about vintage 2020.
Shut up. Okay, so I think we'll just leave it there. You know where to find us. We're on Instagram. Instagram is threatening to roll out unskippable ads.
Fuck
So
that!
as you scroll down, it will stop and force you to watch an ad with a countdown timer before you can continue scrolling.
So we have a website and a Patreon.
Yeah, so we do have a website and a Patreon. I will get better about Patreon if Instagram follows through on that, because fuck that. Yeah, fuck that. I hate the monetization of literally everything in life. But anyway, our website is strangeandbeautiful.club. There are links to everything in the show notes every single time.
And the links work now.
They do. They've worked for a while. Thank you.
Yeah, like months.
Whole months. We've had podcasts for years, but they've worked for months. The Strange and Beautiful Book Club episode that I used as a sneak peek has all of it on there. I haven't made the show notes ad campaign for Dead Do Not Podcast yet, but I will. By the time this comes out, it'll be on there. So you can check me. And if I don't have it, feel free to send me.
It takes time for Apple Podcasts to work through all their bureaucratic shit.
Yeah. So that's why there's a placeholder episode up right now. And then we will get everything up and we'll get running. And I'm just happy to be here, and I'm happy to be here with you, Matthew. And
I'm happy to be here with you.
I worship his shadow.
May his shadow fall upon you.
Until next time, friends.
Bye.
He must be inorganic.
He's decarbonized.